All right, so are you ready for this?
Always.
Today, we're diving into Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey. I have to admit,
Oh, wow.
when this book first popped up in our suggestions box,
Right.
I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, you
Yeah.
know? But once we started looking at it
Yeah.
through a philosophical lens,
Oh, yeah.
things got really
Absolutely.
interesting.
It is fascinating how a story
Yeah,
written for children, I mean, intended for children,
right.
can bring up these
Yeah.
big questions, you
Yeah.
know, about things like cultural arrogance,
Yeah.
power dynamics,
Yeah.
empathy.
Yeah.
I mean, these are
Yeah.
timeless themes, really.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so we have young Baron Trump, and
He goes on this adventure.
Yeah, he goes on this adventure into this amazing underground world, and right away he bumps into all these these unique societies. You've got the Rattlebrains who, well,
communicate through rattling.
communicate through rattling, yeah.
Right.
And then there are the Micromen who are tiny.
Right.
And Baron, let's just say, he's not exactly...
The most open-minded.
Yeah. He's not winning any awards for
Right.
being the most open-minded guy around.
No, not at all. His first reactions, you know, when he encounters these different cultures,
Yeah.
it really highlights this concept that philosophers have been talking about for ages,
Yeah.
which is cultural arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
He just dismisses their ways of life as strange, inferior, not even considering that different doesn't equal wrong.
Yeah, it's like he's judging a fish for not being able to climb a tree.
Exactly.
But, I mean, honestly, don't we all kind of fall into that trap sometimes?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, we think our way is the right way.
It's a very human thing to do.
Yeah.
Philosophers like Michel de Montaigne,
Right.
way back in the 16th century,
Yeah.
were already questioning that kind of thinking. You know, in his essay on cannibals, he actually criticizes Europeans
Okay.
who were labeling indigenous cultures as barbaric
Yeah.
just because their customs were different.
Right.
He was arguing that this judgment came from ignorance,
Yeah.
not from real understanding.
So before we jump to conclusions
Yeah.
and label something as weird or wrong,
Yeah.
maybe we need to take a step back.
Take a moment and say,
Why did they do things this way?
yeah, why did they do things this way?
Try to see it from their point of view.
Yeah. See it from their side.
Yeah.
No.
And this leads us to Immanuel Kant,
Okay.
who believed that every single human being deserves respect, no matter their culture, their beliefs,
Right.
even how they communicate.
Okay.
And Baron, he's not getting it.
No, he's not.
He's treating the Rattlebrains and the Micromen
Well,
almost like they're exhibits in a museum,
right. Yeah, he doesn't see them.
not like individuals
Yeah,
worthy of respect.
right. He doesn't see their dignity, their right to exist.
Yeah, and this really comes into play when he runs into the Selenites,
Right.
who are,
Much more vulnerable.
they're presented as much more vulnerable.
Yeah,
And instead of showing any empathy,
right.
Baron decides to use their vulnerability
To his advantage.
for his own benefit.
Exploits them, really.
Yeah.
Which brings us right to the whole philosophical debate
Yeah.
about power dynamics.
This is like classic might makes right stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. But remember Plato.
Yeah.
Plato
okay.
argued against that centuries ago.
Right. In the Republic.
Exactly, in the Republic.
Yeah.
He envisions a just society where leaders use their power
Yeah.
not to exploit, but to benefit others.
It's like a complete flip
It is a flip.
of what Baron's doing.
Yeah.
Instead of, what can I get from these people? It's
Yeah.
how can I help them?
How can I use this power
Right.
to make things better for them?
Totally.
And Rousseau, in The Social Contract,
right.
takes this even further.
Okay.
He says that leaders actually have a moral obligation
Okay.
to act in the best interest
Right.
of the people they govern.
So it's not just about not being a jerk.
It's not just about, not exploiting. It's
Right.
about actively using that power.
It's a responsibility.
It is a responsibility.
Right.
Absolutely.
So Baron's not doing so well in the ethical leadership department,
Not so much, no.
but there's another layer here.
Right.
Like,
There's always another layer.
there's always another layer, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like he's actually limiting the Selenites' freedom
Yes.
by taking advantage of them.
By taking advantage of their situation, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where Simone de Beauvoir's work is so relevant.
Okay.
She argued that true freedom can only exist when we respect the freedom of others.
Okay.
When Baron manipulates the Selenites,
Yeah.
He's taking away their agency, their ability to make their own choices.
He's shrinking their world.
Yes, exactly.
It's almost as if he's making them into...
pawns in his game.
Yeah, pawns in his game.
Rather than recognizing them as players with their own... goals and aspirations.
Yeah.
And it makes us think, you know...
It does.
How can we be sure that power in any form is being used ethically, responsibly?
How do we make sure we're not replicating those power imbalances?
Those imbalances.
That we see in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
In our own lives.
In our own lives and communities.
It's definitely something to think about.
It is.
But let's switch gears for a sec and talk about another one of Barron's, well...
less than stellar qualities.
Let's call them opportunities for growth.
Yeah, there you go.
His impatience.
His impatience, yes.
I mean, whether it's the rattlebrain's way of talking or the micromen's slower pace of life.
Right.
He's constantly getting annoyed by anyone.
If it's not his way, forget it.
Who's not doing things his way.
Right.
And I think this shows something deeper.
Oh, absolutely. It shows a lack of...
a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy.
Yeah.
He's so focused on his own discomfort that he can't even try to see things from their perspective.
It's my way or the highway with him.
Exactly.
Which is not a great look.
It's not a great look.
For anyone, really.
And this is where, you know, we see how this ancient wisdom is still so relevant today.
Yeah.
Aristotle, all the way back in ancient Greece, considered patience to be a key virtue.
Okay.
The ability to deal with challenges.
Yeah.
With reason, with composure.
Yeah. Barron definitely could have used a bit more of that.
A little more of that, yeah.
Maybe he should have packed a copy of Nicomachean Ethics.
I think so.
For his underground journey.
It would have been helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
And building on that idea of thoughtful action.
Right.
We have David Hume.
David Hume, yes.
Who was all about empathy.
Emphasized empathy.
Yeah, he really believed in sympathy.
Which is basically the ability to understand.
And share the feelings of others.
Right.
Really connect on that level.
So instead of getting annoyed by the rattlebrain's communication style.
Right.
Maybe Barron could have tried to learn their language.
Tried to see the world through their, their rattling sounds.
See the world through their rattling sounds, yeah.
Instead of just dismissing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how different the story would be if Barron had approached each encounter with a genuine desire to understand.
Right, with that empathy.
Yeah.
That curiosity.
He might have actually learned something.
Absolutely.
From those he thought were so different.
Instead of just seeing them as weird or strange.
It's all about walking a mile in their shoes.
It is.
You can't really get someone until you've seen things their way.
Until you've seen the world through their eyes.
Yeah.
And speaking of understanding.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another philosopher?
Oh, you think of Confucius?
Yeah, Confucius.
Yeah. He was all about patience and open-mindedness.
He was all about taking the time to understand different perspectives.
Right.
Before making judgments.
He had that great quote. To know what is right and not to do it is the worst cowardice.
Powerful words.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying knowledge
without action is meaningless.
It's not enough to just talk the talk.
We have to walk the walk.
You got to walk the walk.
We can't just talk about empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
We have to actually practice it.
Right.
And this leads us to one of the biggest issues in Barron's journey.
Okay.
And maybe in our own lives too.
Okay.
The struggle to respect diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Barron doesn't just misunderstand the micromen and Solonites.
Right.
He actually sees them as inferior.
Yeah.
He's totally blinded by his own sense of cultural superiority.
Like he can't see the value in their differences.
He can't see the value in what makes them unique.
He's stuck in this black and white world when the underground he's exploring is bursting with color.
It's a vibrant, complex place.
Right.
And John Locke,
yeah,
another philosopher from the 17th century,
okay,
he was all about tolerance.
Right.
In his letter concerning toleration, he argued for accepting different religious beliefs.
Okay.
But his ideas can totally apply to cultural diversity, too.
So instead of trying to force the rattlebrains and micromen to conform to his way of doing things.
To forcing them to fit into his mold.
Barron could have celebrated their unique perspectives.
Imagine what they could have accomplished if they had worked together, embracing those differences.
Right. That's the beauty of diversity, isn't it?
It is.
It brings all these different ideas and solutions.
It expands our understanding of the world and of ourselves.
But Barron seems to be missing out on all of that.
He does seem to be missing out.
Yeah, he's too busy trying to prove he's better than everyone.
Yeah, he's too focused
to actually learn from those who are different.
on proving his superiority.
Yeah.
And that brings us to this concept of cultural relativism.
Okay.
Johann Gottfried Herder, an 18th century philosopher,
right.
He championed the idea that each culture has its own value.
Okay.
And should be understood on its own terms.
So you're saying you can't judge a sunflower for not being a rose.
Exactly.
They're both beautiful in their own ways.
They are both beautiful.
Yeah.
In their own unique ways.
Right.
Trying to impose one culture's values on another.
Right.
Herder saw that as arrogant and destructive.
It's like he sees the world as this amazing tapestry.
A vibrant tapestry of cultures.
Someone adding its own thread.
Contributing its own unique thread to the overall beauty of humanity.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is.
But it seems like Baron's more interested in tearing apart the tapestry.
He does seem to be.
Yeah, he's not really into appreciating the intricate patterns.
Not appreciating the richness and the complexity of that tapestry.
And that leads us to a more recent philosophical voice.
Yes.
Kwame Anthony Appiah.
Kwame Anthony Appiah, a contemporary philosopher who advocates for a global ethic that balances respect for cultural differences with a commitment to universal moral principles.
So it's about finding that balance.
Find that balance between embracing diversity, but also holding on to those core values that connect us as human beings.
So we can appreciate and learn from different cultures.
Yes.
While still upholding values like justice.
With justice,
fairness, respect.
Respect for human dignity.
For human dignity, yeah.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to Baron's exploitation of the Selenites.
Right back to that.
Even if their culture is different from his, there's no excuse for taking advantage of them.
There's no excuse.
Those universal moral principles.
They should always guide our actions.
Should always be our compass.
No matter what.
No matter the circumstances.
No matter what.
And this brings us to some philosophical heavy hitters.
Oh, yes.
Who really wrestled with these ideas of compassion, vulnerability, and justice.
Vulnerability.
And we'll start with John Rawls.
Okay, John Rawls.
A 20th century philosopher who came up with this thought experiment called the veil of ignorance.
The veil of ignorance, yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, imagine you're designing a society.
Okay.
But you have no idea what position you'll hold in that society.
Okay.
You could be rich, poor, healthy, sick, powerful, powerless.
You don't know.
You don't know.
Okay.
Rawls argues that this veil of ignorance forces us to create a system that's fair for everyone.
Right.
Because we don't know where we'll end up.
That's a really interesting way to think about justice.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it forces you to think about everyone's needs, not just your own.
Not just your own.
If Baron had approached the Selenites through that lens...
Through that veil of ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might have realized that exploiting them.
It would never be just or compassionate.
Yeah, it's like asking yourself...
It is.
What kind of world would I want to live in?
Exactly.
If I didn't know who I would be?
What kind of worlds would I want if I didn't know?
It completely changes your perspective.
It does.
And as we're talking about compassion...
Yeah.
It might seem strange to bring up Nietzsche.
It might.
I mean, he's known for some pretty radical ideas.
He is known for being a bit provocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does he have to say about all this?
Well, Nietzsche was a big critic of societal norms.
Okay.
Especially those that allowed the mistreatment of the weak and vulnerable.
So he's saying just because something is normal...
Doesn't make it right?
Doesn't mean it's right.
Especially if it's causing harm.
Right. Especially if it's hurting people.
Yeah.
So don't just stand by.
Don't be a bystander.
And let injustice happen.
To injustice.
Even if everyone else is doing it.
Even if it's cloaked in tradition or societal expectations.
Okay.
Challenge those norms.
Challenge those norms, yeah.
Yeah.
And to round out this discussion of compassion, we have Martha Nussbaum.
Martha Nussbaum.
Who developed the capabilities approach.
Capabilities approach, yeah.
Fill me in. What's that?
Well, she argues that a just society should focus on enabling everyone to flourish.
All right.
To reach their full potential.
So it's not just about avoiding harm.
It's not enough.
It's about creating a world.
It's about creating a world
where everyone can thrive.
Where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
So if we look at Baron through this lens, he's not just failing to help the Selenites.
He's not just failing to help.
He's actually holding them back.
He's hindering their ability to flourish by exploiting their weaknesses.
It's like he's clipping their wings.
Exactly.
Instead of teaching them to fly.
And this brings us to a question for all of us.
Okay.
How can we, unlike Baron, actively work towards a society that values and protects the vulnerable?
It's a big question.
It's a big question.
But this deep dive has given us a lot to think about.
A lot to ponder.
Who knew a children's book could be so philosophically rich?
It's amazing how these seemingly simple stories can hold such deep truths.
It really is.
This is really just the beginning.
Yeah.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Right. There's so much more to uncover.
There's so much more to explore.
In this story.
Within Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey.
It's like the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going even deeper.
We're going to venture further
into the philosophical depths of this story.
We're going to look at the symbolic meaning of Baron's journey.
This is where things get really interesting.
It does get interesting.
We'll be right back after a short break.
We'll be right back. So we've talked about how Baron reacts to the Rattlebrains, the Micromen, the Selenites. I mean, it's pretty clear he's arrogant. He lacks empathy.
Yeah, not exactly a poster child for open-mindedness.
No, not really.
Yeah.
But you mentioned another layer earlier.
All right. Yeah.
Something about Baron's journey.
Well, throughout the book, they keep describing his underground adventure.
Right.
As this big, grand exploration into the unknown.
Yeah, classic adventure story setup.
But what if it's not just about some fantastical underground world?
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What if it's a metaphor for all of our journeys through life?
Ah, I see what you're getting at.
We all encounter our own Rattlebrains and Selenites along the way, right?
We do. Those people, those situations that challenge us, that push us out of our comfort zones.
And force us to confront our own biases.
Exactly. We're all on this journey navigating a world that's full of complexity, full of difference.
And just like Baron, we have to make choices.
Choices with consequences.
Do we cling to our old ways of thinking, exploit those who are different?
Or do we choose a different path?
Right. Do we embrace those philosophical tools we've been talking about?
The patience, the understanding.
The respect, the compassion.
The ethical use of power.
It's like we're given this map and compass for life.
A guidebook. But we have to decide how to use it.
But it's up to us to decide which way to go.
It is.
And this brings us back to that idea of cosmopolitanism.
Right, Kwame Anthony Appiah.
Being a citizen of the world.
Open to different cultures, different perspectives.
It's like that saying, travel is fatal to prejudice.
The more we experience, the more we learn.
Yeah. The more we realize that our way isn't the only way.
And sometimes, it's not even the best way.
And that requires a good dose of humility.
Humility, yes.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Being willing to learn, even if it means admitting we were wrong.
Which is something Baron clearly struggles with.
He does. He always needs to be right, to be in control.
It's that need for control that blinds him.
But if we can cultivate that humility, that curiosity,
it opens us up to new possibilities.
Then we can have real conversations, bridge those divides.
And maybe even learn something new about ourselves in the process.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of this bigger story.
This human story.
A story that's richer because of its diversity.
No, and its complexity.
And just like Baron's journey was full of twists and turns.
Our lives are rarely straightforward.
Yeah, we're constantly running into new challenges.
New Rattlebrains and Selenites that push us.
But those challenges, those uncomfortable moments,
they're often the ones that teach us the most.
It's all about how we respond, how we navigate those unexpected turns.
Do we react with fear, with judgment like Baron?
Or do we approach them with curiosity, with a willingness to learn?
That's the key question.
So for our listener, the one who's on their own journey,
their own underground adventure, so to speak,
what advice would you give them? What should they pack for the trip?
Well, I'd say the most important thing is self-awareness.
Knowing yourself, your biases.
Before we can even begin to understand others.
Right. We need to understand ourselves.
We need to recognize our own blind spots.
It's like that saying, the unexamined life is not worth living.
We can't grow if we're not willing to look inward.
And along with self-awareness,
I'd pack a healthy dose of empathy.
The ability to see the world through other people's eyes.
Even if their experiences are totally different from our own.
It's about moving beyond that us versus them mentality.
We're recognizing that shared humanity that connects us all.
We might not always agree.
But we can at least try to understand where they're coming from.
And that understanding often leads to compassion.
Compassion, yes. Another crucial tool.
It's not just about feeling sorry for someone.
It's about taking action, alleviating suffering.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected.
Our actions have ripple effects.
Even small acts of kindness can make a big difference.
And speaking of actions, I'd also pack ethical responsibility.
It's not enough to just have good intentions.
We need to act in ways that align with our values.
Promote justice. Promote fairness.
Use our power for good.
Not for personal gain or to take advantage of others.
We have a responsibility to make the world a better place.
Even if it's just in our own little corner of it.
And finally, I'd pack a spirit of adventure.
That willingness to embrace the unknown.
To learn from the unexpected.
Just like Baron's journey, our lives are full of surprises.
It's about being open to new experiences.
Even if they're challenging?
Even if they make us uncomfortable.
Because those are often the experiences that teach us the most.
So, self-awareness, empathy, compassion, ethical responsibility, and a spirit of adventure.
That's quite the packing list. Right. Let's bring it back to Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey.
Okay.
We've explored so many ideas.
We have.
But I feel like there's one more piece we haven't quite uncovered.
I'm always up for uncovering another layer.
We've gone deep into the philosophical side of things.
Analyzed Baron's actions, connected them to these thinkers.
But we keep forgetting one crucial detail.
Okay, what's that?
This is a children's novel.
Ah, you're right. We have been focusing on the deeper themes.
And children's stories often have hidden messages.
They do. Like fairy tales, they seem simple.
But they're full of symbolism, metaphors for life's challenges.
So you're wondering if there's a deeper meaning we've missed.
Yeah, like a moral to the story.
What if we approach it not just as an adventure?
Okay.
But as a cautionary tale.
Ooh, I like that.
A warning about what happens when we ignore those philosophical lessons.
So if Baron represents those pitfalls, the arrogance, the prejudice,
the lack of empathy,
then his fate in the story could be seen as a direct consequence of his choices.
Exactly. And without giving too much away.
Right.
Let's just say his ending isn't exactly a happy one.
Oh, wow.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences.
And those consequences can ripple outward.
Affecting not just ourselves, but those around us.
It's like that butterfly effect again.
One small choice can lead to a completely different outcome.
And in Baron's case, his choices lead him to a pretty dark place.
A place of isolation, despair.
Which brings us back to those philosophical tools.
They're not just abstract ideas.
They're practical guides.
For navigating life, for avoiding those negative consequences.
Self-awareness helps us see our biases.
Empathy lets us understand the impact of our choices.
Compassion motivates us to help others.
Ethical responsibility guides us to use our power for good.
And that spirit of adventure keeps us open to new experiences.
They're like a map and compass, helping us stay on course.
Making choices that lead to a better destination.
For ourselves and for the world.
So maybe that's the hidden message.
The moral of the story?
Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey is a call to action.
It reminds us that we have the power to choose a different path.
A path that leads to connection, to compassion.
To a world where everyone can thrive.
It's a pretty powerful message, especially for a children's book.
It is, but I guess that's the beauty of exploring with an open mind.
You never know where you'll find wisdom.
Well said.
So, to our listener, thank you for sending us this fascinating book.
We've had a great time exploring it with you.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you.
To embark on your own philosophical adventures.
And remember, no matter where your journey takes you,
keep those philosophical tools close at hand.
They might just come in handy when you least expect it.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those questions coming. Okay, so we're thinking about Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey as a cautionary tale. How does that actually play out in the story itself?
Well, without spoiling the ending for anyone who hasn't read it yet, let's just say Baron's journey doesn't exactly end in triumph. He faces consequences.
It's like he's getting a cosmic report card, and it's not looking good.
Exactly. And this is where the story goes beyond a simple kid's adventure. It becomes this reflection on our choices and the consequences.
So it's not just about Baron messing up his own life. It's bigger than that.
It is. His choices affect everyone and everything around him. The Rattlebrains, Microman, Solonites, even the underground world itself. It's like a reminder. We're not just individuals, you know.
All right, we're all connected.
We are. We're part of this web of relationships.
And our actions, big or small, they make a difference.
They do. They have an impact on that web.
It's like that butterfly effect we talked about, right?
Exactly. Even a small choice can lead to a totally different outcome, sometimes with consequences we didn't expect.
Which brings us back to all those philosophical tools. They're not just ideas.
No, they're practical.
They're like a guidebook, right?
They can help us avoid those negative consequences.
So like self-awareness helps us see our biases before they cause harm.
Right. And empathy. It helps us understand how our choices affect other people.
Because we can see things from their perspective.
And compassion, it motivates us to help, to make things better.
An ethical responsibility.
That guides us to use whatever power we have for good, not for ourselves.
Not to take advantage of others.
Exactly. And let's not forget that spirit of adventure.
Being open to the unknown.
Yeah. Because it's those challenges, those moments when we're uncomfortable, those are the times we often grow the most.
So this children's story about Baron Trump's journey, it's really about all of us.
It is, in a way. It's about how our choices matter. They shape not only our own lives, but also the lives of everyone around us and the world itself.
It's a pretty powerful message.
It is. And it's amazing that we find it in this story,
It reminds us that even in unexpected places, we can find wisdom.
That's so true.
And that might be the most valuable lesson of all.
It might be.
So to our listener, thanks for sending us this book. It really got us thinking.
It did. And we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive.
We hope you got something out of it. And hey, no matter where your own journey takes you, remember those philosophical tools.
They can really make a difference.
They can help us create a better world. Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those questions coming.